Welcome to University, a podcast for young people navigating life's big transitions. I'm Annmarie and your host. On University, you'll hear stories from college students. You'll get tips from experts. And occasionally, you'll hear from a parent's perspective on how to manage this time of change in your life consciously. Find yourself, find your purpose, find your people, and pursue you fearlessly. All right, you guys. Well, this week, Adam and I are doing another recap, but this time we're doing it a little differently because Adam is traveling back from a conference he was recently at, and we are doing this over the phone remotely in an airport. So, hey, Adam, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm in an airport, Baltimore's airport, and I'm ready. Like, this is just a good time to talk because I'm feeling very motivated, and I just left a conference where I'm feeling very professionally sound, and I think that's why this is a really good time to talk.
Yeah, because the whole topic is we're playing this month with following your passions, trusting your intuition, trusting your gut, surrendering to what's going on around you. Brandon kicked us off. Well, we kicked this off with freedom, right? The freedom to this month. We kicked off freedom with like the feeling free to really pursue yourself authentically and honestly, and trusting that the universe sort of has your back and that it's going to all figure itself out. And Brandon kicked us off by sharing with us his experience of dropping, everything he studied to pursue something else, right? He got these 3 job offers. He decided not to take them. And he's now out in the world looking for something else. And he's not even sure what that is yet. But all he knew was that it wasn't feeling good to follow this path of education. And rather than put himself down a rabbit hole, right? Like start something that he knew he didn't want to do. He's taking this big giant risk and rejected 3 job offers and is just going to go out and see what happens. And by the way, Adam, he was here yesterday before a job interview.
Yeah, I've been talking with him through a couple of his job interviews that he's had. And I noticed, like, with him, and I get this, he doesn't even really like people knowing because he doesn't want to be asked about him all the time because he's, there is fear there, right? And so he's not ignoring the fact that he's scared. He's not ignoring the fact that, like, the decision he made isn't like something that would induce fear and be a little scary, but it's a different kind of fear, which is what we've talked about. It's not this like intense fear that would overtake you. It's more of like this excited fear, like what's to come, and that's what I'm really excited to see in him.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to talk about is there's different kinds of fear, like you just pointed out. So if you're listening in, I want you to listen in really closely because this is important. We all believe we make fear bad or wrong. And there's something that we call intelligent fear or fear with wisdom. And then there's another fear that is unconscious fear. It's sort of made up fear. It's not real. So our job is to learn to start to identify the difference between our unconscious or unreal fears that aren't justified, versus a fear that is that makes sense, right? There's like this excitement that you have, the fear of the unknown. Like, what am I stepping into? Like Brandon, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I'm afraid, but it feels good. I'm going to follow this fear because it feels good, versus the feel bad fear that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that it's your body though too, right? So like the difference in fears and the way to differentiate which one is which is your body knows the answer. So earlier when you were talking about the universe has your back and, go towards what feels right. Like that's really what this is all about. It's like it can be as simple as what feels right, what feels best, what feels easiest, and then moving that way, like taking your brain out of it and just listening to does this feel right? Does this feel good? Does this feel best? And
Yeah,
then moving in that direction.
right, and it could still feel scary. Like
Yes, and
like
right.
Brandon's, it feels right for him not to follow the educational path. It feels right for him. And that's scary. So there's like both and. But what most of us do is we're too scared to feel that fear. So we don't do it. We don't do the thing he's
Mm,
doing, which
mm.
is, we're addicted to being comfortable. We're totally addicted to being comfortable. We're addicted to feeling safe, even though it's an
Yep.
illusion.
Yeah. And so I just came off this conference where, I've been having this thought for a year now, or a year and a half. And we've talked a little bit about how I've had freedom around my career, and I've had freedom around what my future would look like professionally. I've never really had an attachment to anything. And things
Which
keep
is
coming up for me.
completely unique, Adam.
Yeah, I know. I do realize that that's unique. That's the one thing it just comes easy to me and natural to me, so yeah, thank you. I recognize that that's unique. And so I don't know, I'm going to these conferences, and I'm sitting there listening to keynotes and keynote speakers, and I'm like, I want to do that. Like, even if like I showed up at this conference today and their keynote canceled and they needed someone to keynote, I feel like if they put me in front on the stage with 10 minutes notice, I could keynote an hour about something. And
Yeah.
so like that, like I just feel like that I could just easily, so I'm like, oh my God, if she got sick right now, I could like go up there and grab the mic and keep the message going, and deliver some sort, like I feel just this connection to an audience, and an understanding of people in a broad sense. And so I don't know, that just feels good to me. It keeps coming up for me. And so what I've been doing is I've been presenting at any conference I possibly can, whether it's for 10 people, 50 people, 3 people, 70 people, 100 people. Like, I've just been presenting over the last couple of years and fine-tuning my presentation, fine-tuning it. And then today I presented at my national conference for like 55 people in a session. And like, it's now this presentation I put together, like it now feels as good as it ever has. And I did
Mm-hmm.
so well. And so I'm like, okay, I'm noticing I'm just on the right track towards being a keynote. Like, right after the keynote finished on Thursday, the speaker, I emailed her, told her I want to be a keynote. I'm not like I'm interested in the message you gave, but I'm more interested in how did you go from A to B? How did you become a keynote? So now I'm in the process of making every decision professionally towards that place for me, like a personal professional thing. So like, I'm going to go towards keynote speaking. I'm going to talk to keynote speakers. I'm going to research keynote speakers. I'm going to ask them, and I'm going to say yes to every single time I can possibly present, for free, for not for free, for money, like whatever it's for. I'm going to go do that.
Yeah. So could you have guessed 5 years ago that you wanted to be a keynote speaker about a particular, what's the topic? Because
Vulnerability and how I want to keep. So that's also a good question. I don't not only want to just be a keynote speaker, I want to be a keynote speaker in front of 1,000 superintendents.
so you
People
want to
that are,
speak to a specific kind of audience.
that's my ideal. But then eventually, when that happens, I want to start keynoting to many audiences. But
But for
like
now,
my
but for
for
now,
now, I want to talk. I want, like, for me, for this next goal, once I get on stage in front of a bunch of superintendents, that's the point that I'll be like, okay, cool, that felt really good. I have reached what I set out to do.
yeah, I think it's
And
so interesting because like 5 years ago, I never would have imagined you working in education in the way that you are, working in PR, and then wanting to speak to this audience about this particular topic. But back to our last recap where you talked about, you just kind of kept following your flow, like what feels good now, what feels good now. You're not in your head trying to figure out what the right next thing to do is. You're totally just in your embodied experience about like what feels good. Oh yeah, this feels good, I'll go this way. This feels good, I'll go this way. Because could you have imagined yourself 5 years ago doing this?
no, like, think about it. I am 2 hours outside my presentation and I feel great. So I want to go feel great again. And it's
Yeah.
as simple as that. So I'm going to just, I just want to feel great again. I feel great right now. And I'm going to fly home and I'm going to have a good night. And like tomorrow, I'm not going to still feel that like thing that I'm feeling right now, but it's still going to be in there. And I want to reignite this every couple months or weeks or whenever I can. And so it's simple. I feel great after I just spoke. And the message I want to talk about is vulnerability in schools and vulnerability in communication in schools. And really just that's the way to create the connection that we need to create, public schools need to create with their community.
That's awesome.
And that's, if I speak that to superintendents and people leave just kind of like with one more, like with that itch in their head, like about vulnerability and what vulnerability really is, because we've talked a lot about it on this podcast and how, people they can change their view on what they think vulnerability is. And, yes, you could be hurt, but you also joy and connection. And so if you're vulnerable, you open yourself up to all things. And
you have to be willing to, risk it all. But
yes,
you have to, but that's the only way you're going to get it all.
Yes, that's it. That's the only way. Yes, you can't pick and choose. It's not an all-you-can-eat buffet. Like, I'll take some vulnerability over here, and I won't take vulnerability over here. Like, you can't take vulnerability only when you know you're getting joy and connection, because that doesn't exist in its purest form. The vulnerability doesn't exist in its purest form if you're picking and choosing when you want it and how you want to receive it back. You can't do that. It's a leap of faith. And so anyways, yeah, I'm like really jazzed, and I'm talking a million miles a minute right now because there's never been a box, a container, or any walls around like where I want to go professionally. The only thing that I have said to myself since I was like a little kid is I want to make sure that it doesn't feel like I'm in prison. I want to make sure, like, that's where it starts.
Freedom.
That's such a negative way to look at it. Yeah, I want to make sure that my career doesn't define like my life. I want it to be a part of what's building my life up. And so I knew early on, like, I didn't want to like just have it be a means to an end. I wanted it just to be a means.
That's what we're talking about. That's what this whole month is about. This is about freedom to pursue what feels good, what lights you up, to do what you want to do in the world. And by the way, when you do what you want to do, you light other people up. You inspire other people to do what they want to do. And so you're aligning yourself to do what is right and aligned and perfect for you, and trusting that when you do that, you're going to find the right people, you're going to find the right conditions, you're going to find the right opportunities to allow you to do that.
Yeah, it'll support me the way it needs to.
It will, if you keep trusting it. Like, I want to jump in for a minute and just talk. I had a couple of good experiences this week, and that I just wrote that children's book a few months ago. I didn't just write it, but I just published the children's book a few months ago.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and that was a similar thing for me. That book, which I had like 5 years ago, there's no way I would have said I'm a children's book author, or I even wanted to write a children's book. And it just kind of happened, and I just kind of followed it. And then I had all this resistance because I didn't know why I would write a children's book, or what I would do with it, or why I would spend my time and energy on it.
Right.
Like, my mind was getting in the way. Like, my college students don't want to read a children's book.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
My audience, this isn't for my audience. But anyway, I wrote it. And then there was something in me that kept saying, just do it, just do it, just do it. And I did it. And it has opened up so many doors and presented me with so many opportunities and put me in places that I wouldn't have imagined being, that are absolutely aligned with what I want to do.
My God. Like, yeah. Oh man. Like, okay. Sorry. So what's coming up for me right now is like, people tell me a lot, and like what you see a lot is like, oh, you want to be a keynote? That's cool. You have to write a book.
Yeah.
And I have no interest in doing that. I'm not going to write a book. I like, I don't like that that's a contingency on like becoming like a really popular, well sought after keynote speaker.
That's a formula.
That's a formula. That's one formula, but it's not like my formula. Like I might talk to keynotes and I'm like, well, I wrote a book, got it published, and then, got some pub that way. And then it's like, it validates the person up on stage. That's kind of the way I look at it. I wrote a book, listen to what I'm about to tell you. You know what I mean? Because I know enough about it, or I'm passionate enough about it to actually write a book on it. And it's like, I don't really want to write a book. And so you had this urge to like, you had this like thing in you that just said, write a children's book just because.
I didn't though. That wasn't even how it happened for me. Do you remember the story?
Oh,
like,
no, then no, okay, yeah, go ahead.
I taught in a classroom, and then I went back, usually after I'm finished teaching, I write the parents a little letter saying, here's what we did in class today. And as I was writing that, like my pen literally started writing diagonally across the page, and I finished, and I'm like, what is that? And I read it, and I'm like, I think that's a children's book. like,
Oh.
I was just following my pen. I was just following my, like, everything dropped, and that's how the book happened. And then what happened after that was I was like, well, I'm not a children's book author, and I don't want to be, so I'm not going to do this thing. But so I kept resisting it. And then finally this thing inside me kept saying, just do the book, just do the book, just do the book. So just like you, I heard you say at the beginning of this call, you sit in these keynotes and you hear this voice saying, be a keynote, I want to do this. I want to do this.
Just grab the mic. Just grab the mic.
Just grab the mic. And you're not resisting it. You're just following that without thinking, oh, I can't because I have to write a book because that's the formula, or I have to have more experience. What I heard you say is you just jumped right in. You're like, well, I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to email this woman and ask her how she did it. I am just going to go in and create it fearlessly. I'm not going to let the fear of any beliefs that I should or shouldn't, or I have to do it a specific way, get in the way of what I want to do. This is just what I want to do. And I'm not doing it because I think I should, or because I think it's something someone else wants me to do, or because it's going to make me the kind of money I think I want to make. I'm doing it because it's an organic, authentic expression of how I want to be in the world.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's exactly how I feel. Yes. And as you're talking, I'm getting emails and tweets from people that were at my presentation.
Seriously? Read one.
Yeah. Okay. I'll read one.
Affirmation from the universe.
Yeah. I mean, I do like a good affirmation. All right. One of my colleagues. Wow. Okay. So I talked a little bit about my issues with food and control. And, I don't feel like I should read this email, but this email basically comes from someone that was that heard my issues with food and control. I talk a little bit about I become vulnerable about my issues with food in my presentation, and this email that I just got just said, I hear you, I understand you, and I've experienced some of that as well.
Yeah, so they related to you.
Like, one more story I will tell about this past trip is, like, I've been telling all my colleagues, I want to be a keynote. I want to be a keynote. And they keep going, you will be. I totally think you will be. And what happens is people want to be a part of that journey.
Yes.
And so I've been telling people, just speaking it out. Just anyone that'll listen, I've just like been speaking it to the universe and speaking it to people. And then what happened is there's this thing called, I didn't know about it before this trip, but there's this thing called the Moth Public Radio Hour, or the Moth Podcast or something. And it's this podcast that goes around the country and goes to restaurants or public places, sets up a whole thing where they set up a stage and it's like an open mic for people just to tell a 5-minute story, and then they publish them, they compile them and publish them. So this past week, my colleagues were like, hey, come with me to this thing. And I was like, all right, well, maybe. I'm going to the gym, and I'm like doing that stuff. And then I like went to the gym, and then he's like, hey, we're leaving, come on. And I was like, all right, I guess I have nothing to do. And I like got in the car and I'm like, where are we going? Where are we going? And he's like, this thing called The Moth, it's about stories, you'll like it. And then we get there and then we go upstairs to the restaurant and we like buy tickets. And I'm like, wait, where are we? What are we doing? And he's like, oh, you're going to sign up to tell a story. And I was like, what do you mean sign up to tell a story? And he's like, dude, just sign up. He's like, go up to that thing, fill this card out and tell a story. And it was themed about backfiring. We had to tell a backfire story. And I was like, dude, I don't know if I have a story about backfiring. He's like, just tell your story and adapt it to backfiring. And I was like, okay. And there's like 200 people in this restaurant. And so I went up, signed my name, and put it in the hat, thinking 10 people speak. There's like 40 people that put their name in the hat, right? And I also got it in late. So they had to put my name in after intermission. So there's only 5 speakers left. And I watched 5 people speak, and I'm like, okay. And then the 6th person, right after intermission, they pulled my name. And so I had to get up on stage in front of 200 people and just tell a story that I've never rehearsed, or like people were rehearsing theirs, like they were professional storytellers. And I just got up on stage and I just spoke from like what was true for me. And I told them about my journey through my exercise and food my relationship with food and exercise through when I was a kid. I don't know if people know on this podcast, but when I was like 11 and 12, I used to like zero out my calories. I would eat enough so that I would exercise enough to end the day on 0 amount of calories in my body. Like I would treat myself like a car. And so I talked about that, and I talked about why I did that and my journey through that, and then how it's backfiring right now because control is something that I made up in my mind when I was 11 or 12. And now I'm 32 years old, relying heavily on this way of control, and it's getting in the way of me diving headfirst and fully committing to a lot of things, including a girl that I really love, that I've been in a relationship with for 8 years. And it creates boundaries in that way. And so I just told that story, and it was 4 minutes and 45 seconds. It was perfect. And then I walked off the stage. And after that, like, it's so good. It felt so good. And it was like my colleagues being like, dude, you want a keynote? Cool. Go talk. You know, like,
I love that the universe, like, first of all, put you where you were, like, because you weren't home, you weren't in Chicago, you don't travel very much to begin with, so
not for work,
right? So you're out of town, you're on this work trip. They're telling you they know about this. This all happens to be perfectly aligned in this now moment for you, for Adam. Your name gets pulled. Like, none of this is an accident.
No, and I kept speaking it into existence.
Yeah, and I want you to stop saying, I want to be a keynote speaker, and I want you to start saying, I am a keynote speaker.
Who hasn't keynote spoke?
No, don't say it. Don't. You just did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah.
I am a keynote speaker.
Yeah, I am a keynote speaker. And like after that story, like 3 or 4 people came up to me in the audience and were like, you know, I think that was really, really brave of you to do. And I'm really like, thanks for doing that. I'm dealing with that right now with my partner. And I'm dealing with that right now with myself. And it's getting in the way of my connection with my partner. Like I had like 3 or 4 people come up to me and say that. And so I don't know. And then like today I had my presentation and it went really well. And I'm getting a lot of valuable like feedback and connection with people. It's nice when I speak from the place of like actually where I'm at and people receive it that way. I don't know. It's what I want to do. And you're right. It's what I am. A keynote speaker.
It's who I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's what I do. Okay. I think this was awesome. I love this because this demonstrates freedom in a way that, in a way, no, you can't in any other way. Like, this is what freedom is: the freedom to follow your bliss, follow your joy, follow what you love to do, and trust that the rest will take care of itself. You don't have to worry about, you know, how will I pay the bills? Like, yes, you do have to think about that and consider that, but trust that if you follow what you're really good at, what you love to do, that everything will come back to you in perfect time.
Yeah,
the universe will support you.
I'm noticing that. It's funny how like I've been doing this around my career my whole life, and I didn't really notice, because people constantly tell you, well, you work really hard, so of course you're getting where you are. And I mean, it doesn't feel like it never felt like I was working really hard. It just felt like I was working very easy. I don't know. It's just, you go towards what feels best. And if you keep going back to that, yeah, I don't know. This is freedom. It is freedom in my career, and it feels good to be free in my career. It feels really good.
And it doesn't mean you don't work hard. It means that the work isn't hard.
Yeah, right. It doesn't feel hard.
It doesn't feel hard.
Yeah.
I work hard, but there's tons of joy. I love what I do. It's a lot of hard work, but all the work is fun.
Yeah.
But I do think this is what we're talking about this month. We're talking about feeling free, and that freedom comes from within, and that, Brandon's showing us what it means to be free. We're going to we have an interview coming up with Sky, who's exploring freedom in her way, you exploring it in another way. Like everyone, one of the things I loved that you said was, lots of people write a book to then become a keynote speaker. It's just not my way. And there's not this prescriptive formula for creating yourself as successful and happy. That formula, the freedom lies with finding the formula that's right for you.
That's very true. That's very, very true. Even if it's a job that you think it's a plug-in, like get this degree, get this, like you can make even those jobs that you think are very formulaic, very personal and very you.
Make it all about you.
Thanks, Annmarie.
Thanks, Adam. Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to University. If you liked what you heard, I'd be absolutely thrilled for you to share with a friend, and equally grateful for you to pop over and rate and review on iTunes. It really helps. You can find more information and stay in touch over at university.u on Instagram or at University on Facebook. I'll look forward to seeing you there. If you'd like support navigating the stress and chaos, and you're ready to create a more fulfilling college experience, I offer live weekly group coaching calls every Thursday, 4 to 5 Central Time. It's a place to gather together, to be seen and heard, to reduce your stress and learn how to be in control of your life and create a life you love. Give the first week a try for free. Check it out. For more information, email me at annmarie.university@gmail.com or click the link in the show notes below.